Hi, good morning. It's Mark Owen from Moose Market PR. I'm the editor of Punchline magazine. Welcome to Punchline Talks, the breakfast business briefers. And my goodness, I've got it right finally at the last one of the show of the year. This is our ninth one, and I'd like to welcome a fantastic panel of guests this morning. We have Sam Holliday from the Federation of Small Business, Development Manager for Gloucestershire, Bristol, Bath, and the rest of the world. Steve Gardner-Collins, Managing Director of Visit Gloucestershire. I made that title up for you, Steve. It wasn't on your stuff. Is that okay? I was going to say CEO, President, whatever, head teddy bear. I don't know. Neill Ricketts, CEO of Versarien, and Julie Kent from Pied Piper Appeal, and so much more. We have to say, first of all, congratulations, Julie, on her MBE, and I'm sure we'll touch on that very shortly. But let's start with Sam, as we normally do when he appears on the show. So, Sam, what have you got for us in the newspapers today, please, sir?
Well, it's another one of those mornings where you do wonder what newspapers ever talked about before coronavirus and Brexit, because, frankly, in most papers, you get to the sport before you've got through them two subjects. But I was really struck by this piece in the Times, actually, not about the furlough, which we could talk about in depth, but just about how confusing this whole Christmas business is for everyone. I mean, we've heard on the radio and various things today that Northern Ireland is going to go into a 6-week lockdown straight after Christmas. Wales is doing something similar. There's a feeling that whatever we do at Christmas, we're going to have to pay back for. It's normally at Christmas, you're paying back your Christmas presents for months afterwards. Well, we're going to be paying back in health reasons. And just to confuse it even more, the Times have suggested a 12 rules of Christmas, how you get through your Christmas meal without spreading it and stuff. And I don't know how serious this is, but it goes to show how confusing it all is. So number one is travel by car where possible. Number two is if using public transport, book in advance to avoid crowded services. GDPR yesterday said they were stopping advance tickets, so you can't do that. Number six, if you're around the table with your 3 different sets of families, avoid people from different households facing one another at dinner.
We do that anyway. We do that anyway in my house.
Yeah, very clever. Games, quizzes and charades are better than involving physical objects, surfaces, or singing. I mean, that is a bonus for those that can't stand karaoke. But you see, as I said, I don't know how much this is serious, how much is not serious, but it goes to show that none of us really know where we're going. And that depends on where you are in the country as well. I mean, Mark, I know you're very upset about the fact that you've got Welsh roots, and it's different across the border. Literally, just the other side of the Forest of Dean, where Neill's based, it's different rules, and Scotland's different rules, and it's just going to be such a crazy Christmas. And the whole concept of Christmas, I mean, people say that Boris Johnson is quite a Marmite character. You either love him or you hate him. But the feeling is that at Christmas, he wanted to be loved by everyone by giving everyone their Christmas back. But people are starting to think, should he have done? Should he have been the ultimate Grinch and just said, look, for our long-term health, Christmas, just forget about it? Because I think we're all in quandaries. We're probably all having to let down family members that wanted to see us. Hard to believe, I know, Mark, but it's a case, and we're all in that difficult situation. So I think a bit like paying the debts back after Christmas, we're going to be paying back the health debt because of Christmas, but we all want it. So terribly confusing.
Well, a couple of things, actually, I'd like to lead back from there. First, you talk about people letting you down. Well, where's your Christmas hat? I sent
Christmas
a memo.
top,
Look, you can't.
red.
No, sorry, mate. Look at Neill's.
I
Look at the others.
look like Santa. I mean.
And also, I did actually get a fellow Welshman to help me out today because I thought you might have a pop. So that leads us very nicely to Neill Ricketts. Welcome, Neill, to your first Punchline Talks. Neill, what have you got out of the newspapers today for us? I know you said off air that you don't normally buy papers nowadays.
I've got to be honest, this is a thoroughly depressing pastime, isn't it, the papers? And today I've had to go out and get another set of papers just because I couldn't find anything that kind of lightened up the day. 2020, obviously, it's been a very challenging year, and it's notwithstanding everything that's going on with Gloucester potentially heading into tier 3 and all of those kind of rumours that were going around this week. We've only gone and got this one at work. We've only gone and got Cipriani leaving Gloucester. Which for me is a bit of a disaster, but it does highlight the fact that how are these big venues going to survive moving forward. That's a story on the back page of the Citizen this morning, and the hospitality industry and these big events, we're not seeing any light at the end of the tunnel, are we? So we've kind of got to work out a way of getting those back and running quickly, but clubs are struggling to pay wages and to keep going. I know as a grassroots player myself, our club Drybrook is struggling, and they're getting their various fundraising activities going. Obviously, that segues nicely into the whole conversation that, are sports too dangerous for us these days? You always did tell me, Mark, that I had the perfect face for radio, and you never want to do any video interviews. You only ever want me on the podcast. But 30 years of playing rugby, it does take its toll. And obviously, we're seeing a bit of a revolution within professional sport now. But if it goes through rugby, what other sports are going to say that they're too dangerous? I've been a children's coach in grassroots rugby, and I think it's a fantastic thing for our children to do. But obviously, no parent wants their child to be injured in a long-term way. So, my question to everybody is, are sports too dangerous, and what are we going to do if we're not playing sports?
I mean, there's danger in everything we do, isn't it? That is the big question. I do like your Santa Claus beard you put on. And by the way, when you held up your newspapers, it disappeared, your Cipriani story, because I didn't realise that wasn't a real background. I'm very, very disappointed now. I'm going to have to move you. I'm going to have to move you out the way. And then because you mentioned events and hospitality, that leads me very nicely onto Steve. Hey, Steve. Welcome back to the show.
Morning, Mark. I'm living the dream, as I keep reminding people at the moment in our sector. Hospitality is once again plunged, or we haven't been plunged into anything different than we've been in for the last few weeks. And unfortunately, in tier 2, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. We're open, but people are being told to kind of stay away, and it's a real balancing act between staying open, wanting to remain there for our visitors who want to come out, and there's a hell of a lot of people that aren't coming out, so we're suffering as a consequence. So yeah, it's been a roller coaster of a first phase tier 2. Now we're in it for Christmas, which again is a mixed bag of some successes. We're busy in some venues, but some other venues are really struggling to see visitors on Christmas Day. Particularly if you are considering going out, then you can't go out in a bubble, but you could go out as a household. If you're agoraphobic from all of this time apart, you could go and spend Christmas on your own in a pub. So yeah, it's been an interesting few weeks. My stories that I've picked up on, obviously on Punchline, my tablet decided to die, so I'm having to improvise. I'm trying to be modern with technology, and it never works. But your story on the airport runway expansion, £15 million, I will hold it up so that we do a little bit of a visual. Oh, can you pick it up?
Just about, yes, that's right. Yeah, nice big graphic there. Yeah,
so that's really encouraging for the county. Naturally, I'm not quite sure Gloucestershire Airport impacts hospitality as well as it could do in terms of driving visitors into the area. I think we might need a bit more of a bigger expansion to bring in tourists, but certainly from an economy point of view, 52 million quid. Yeah, we'll take some more of that when the coronavirus disappears. We've obviously got this new wave of updates today on every single front page, really. Tiers of bedlam across the Christmas period. We're kind of told to stay away from each other, and then corona won't be around for 4 days. And then whether we'll be in this tier 4 in the new year, that'll be very interesting. And again, for hospitality, tier 4 lockdown, I guess we might be in a better place. I understand there'll be more grants. Perhaps they'll take into consideration January and February aren't great months for the hospitality sector anyway. Whether they'll maximise the grants like they did at the 10k point back at the beginning of all this, we yet to see. But certainly, I suppose if we do go into a 3 or 4 tier, hospitality would benefit from a bit more of the grants because we're just not picking up the numbers. And then I can't find it right now, but there is the mullet. Oh, here it is, the return of the mullet. Something a bit different from usual. Hairdressers a warning.
Yes.
The new fashion for 2021 men is the return of the mullet.
Well, Sam's nearly there anyway, and Neil,
that's where I picked up on it.
Neil's got no chance.
Look at that. Hide it under a hat. Yeah, so something a bit more light-hearted to end on from me, but certainly a really interesting year. I was really hopeful that 2021 would be a bit more of a bounce back and a recovery phase, but given the vaccine has only managed to be about 100 and something thousand people so far, if you do the math on 60 million and we've all got to have it twice, I think we'll be lucky if we're all not on domestic staycation still in August.
Without a shadow of a doubt, this ain't going to end for a long time. Julie, welcome to Punchline Talks.
Hello.
Hello. Congratulations on your MBE. We won't focus on that too much just now. But what have you picked out for us for the new? And I love your antlers, but I call them ears earlier, but they are antlers.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of changing my car next year, and I had been thinking about going electric. And so this caught my eye. In Coventry, they're going to be testing the sort of scale electric car idea where they're going to put the wireless charger underneath the ground, and then your car will have a receiver, and you'll drive around and it's supposed to charge itself. But I thought it was quite interesting, because that is something that puts me off. You know, by Montpellier Wine Bar, I think they've got one charger. Well, that's not much use, is it? So it does concern me that if I bought an electric car, would I be able to charge it if I was out and about?
Yeah.
And Neill probably, I just knew Neil was going to be an expert on this. What do you think, Neill?
Well, there's actually more charging points than there are petrol stations now. There's something like 20,000 charging points, and a lot of them are free. I mean, I run an electric car, and I have done now for a couple of years, and I can't say enough good things about it. But as you point out, range anxiety is one of the big challenges to get people over. You know, we're kind of addicted to petrol stations. But the reality is it's not really a problem. There's only been one time in the last 12 months or 2 years that I've kind of had a problem. And that was because of a failure. But I don't want to butt in there, Julie, but I thought I'd just give you my experience.
Well,
I'd just like to say
144,000 electric cars have been bought this year. And it's going to be really interesting to see if this works. But the idea of scale electric, you know, you're charging it as you're driving along, I think is really interesting. So,
but do you know, by talking about energy and things like that, it's a bit like they were going to power the new Sainsbury's 10 years ago. Can you remember that when they built it, where you drive past the forecourt and there's that metal plate, and the idea was that would, and the keys, and that would, but it never worked. After the first day, it broke, and that was it.
Yeah.
Anyway, what else you got, Julie? You got another one there for us quickly?
Can I ask about the scale electrics, Julie? Sorry. Do you fly off the track if you go too fast? My kids' scale electrics just fly across the room.
Yeah, I'm sure. The other one I picked up on actually was a family in Oxford that is looking after asylum seekers. And there is a charity that sorts out people. So the person that she is looking after at the moment had run out of the 5 years of being in the country, applied to have it renewed, didn't get any reply at all. And so now is supposed to leave the country. And there is a charity set up that looks after people either that have just come in or are supposed to be leaving and can't. And obviously charity is my thing. And especially at Christmas, it just feels a bit sad. I know that everyone connects me to Pied Piper, but I actually am chairman of Cheltenham Open Door as well, which is booming. We have food arriving all day, money arriving, and as being the chairman of Cheltenham Open Door and then the vice chairman of Pied Piper, and we're 130,000 down on last year because we're events-based and we like people to come and have a great time and spend their money. And of course, we haven't been able to have any events. It's really interesting being involved in two charities that are so different. Honestly, we can't get all the food into Cheltenham Open Door at the moment. We're asking for money rather than food, which is fantastic because we're going to be feeding 90 people on Christmas Day and giving them food parcels and presents and everything. But obviously Pied Piper is really struggling, and that affects all the sick children in Gloucestershire. So people need to get on our piedpiperappeal.co.uk because we've got loads on, and we've got this amazing raffle that is £2 a ticket, and you could win £500 or a smart TV or a Nintendo Switch or 96 other prizes.
I just love you. I'm going to stop you there because we're going to come back to you anyway. So I'm going to move you on. So let's go back to Neill. Neill, thanks, Julie. Neill, there he is. Neill.
If we're doing promotion, I'd just like to say,
you've
been a bit ill recently, Mark. So I'm just taking note. You know, I'm not taking any chances here. Okay, you did say, but anyway, go on. Sorry, Mark.
No. So you kindly sent me one of those masks. Do you want to explain to everyone what is Versarien, who they are? You got your 2-minute. You know, we're in a lift somewhere. Tell the folks.
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty aligned to a story I was looking at actually, which is it was on Punchline this week, where the Prince of Wales is talking about these 90,000 businesses that have all kind of stepped up and supplied food and product and kind of at the beginning of COVID, you know, our team sat down and thought about, you know, what can we do? We can either have the 9 months off and sit on furlough, or we can get back into work. And we only lost, you know, a day, 2 days through the whole whole challenges that we went through. So we were making, you know, panels for beds, and one of the things that we worked with our Chinese partner that we'd met in September last year, and developed and brought a graphene enhanced mask to market in a very short period of time. The testing, you know, takes an extended period of time, unfortunately, but it's been a great success, and hopefully we've made a real impact. But it is about, you know, how does business help society? You know, because all too often we think of businesses as profit generators, but actually they're key to society. And you know, if we do run into these challenges, I'm sure Sam will talk about it. You know, there's a lot of small businesses that are under pressure. We've had our challenges as well. You know, what more can these businesses do? And you know, I think it's sometimes forgotten how much goes on in the background, how much, even though they've had really tough times, these small businesses and medium-sized businesses have actually contributed to making sure that we just don't all fall over. So
can you just put your mouse back on again, because that's probably do a lot for our viewing figures. And so what other colours have you got, please? Neill?
I've got all the political parties here. So I've got yellow, and I've got the blue. Green isn't here yet. That'll be here in a couple of weeks. We've got adult masks, we've got children's masks, we've got they're reusable, so we're thinking about the environment. They work really, really well. They're fully certified through all the European standards, and the feedback. I mean, you've got one, Mark. What do you think? I mean,
well, I really like it. I wear it a lot, actually. You kindly gave me 3. And I would really like the red one, because that'd go very well with my hat's just like yours, really. It really is. It needs a little bit of white trim, doesn't it? And you've got.
I've checked the nice list, and you're not on there, Mark, unfortunately. So maybe there's still time for you to kind of make it onto the nice list. But I'm trying
to cadge as much gear out of this show as possible, which I've done really well so far. So have you got? Are you going to develop any pink ones? And aren't you developing children's ones?
Oh, actually, yeah, pink ones were the second ones along. So we've also got black and pink, and the children's masks arrived yesterday, and I'm sure you'll be pleased to know that there'll be a story in the new year where we're supporting Wydene School down in Tuts Hill, where I finished off my education, and we'll be down there giving them a thorough field test. So you know, again, it's a sign of how business can help in society.
I'm sorry, mate, but that's not a story for New Year. You just gave us a story now for today. But moving on, Sam. Thank you. Sam, ex-editor of the Bath Chronicle newspaper, claim to fame. So what's it like for small businesses? I know I ask you this on a regular basis. But...
Well, I just focus. I will pick up. I'm not by any means a petrol head, but I will just pick up on what Neill said. He said there's as many charging points as there's petrol stations. But I went to get my paper this morning, and the petrol station had 10 different things I could put my petrol in. So there's more the petrol station provide than there is electric chargers. I think it's a really big issue, electric charging, and I think it's something that needs to be talked about more. So I'm glad it was raised. And I will come back to what Julie said as well, because I think there's a bit of a theme here about it, because it's Christmas, about how people are looking after one another. And I'm so pleased to hear about Open Door, Julie, because I'm a trustee at the Gloucester Food Bank, and trust me, we've done extremely well in the last few months. And that's not because we've gone out and made appeals, it's because people have come to us. And and talking about Punchline did a very good piece a couple of weeks ago about SK Cooling, I think it was, in Gloucester, that have done an incredible amount of work. They decided rather than give each other these £10 Christmas presents they'd always give each other, they'd put it all towards raising money for the food bank, and we've been overwhelmed by the support. So I think it goes to show that business, where, as Neill was saying, from big to little, even when they've got no money and when they're struggling, has tried to look out for one another. As for how small businesses are going, well, it's such a mixed bag. I mean, I come back to what Steve was saying with hospitality. You know, some have done okay, some have done very well. Those have been able to adapt. Some have really struggled. But do you know what? I sense a collective, if you like, if there is any collective there's a bit of a fear for January and February, because traditionally they're not the greatest of months, particularly in retail, hospitality and things like that. You know, they're not the best months anyway. And I think with all the health concerns, I think the feeling is that we've almost got to get through January and February. They could be very tricky months. And it's funny, I hadn't really thought about this before, but seeing Neill talking about the different political colours for his masks, do you think any political party going into a coming election will be able to say there's no money anymore? Because they've proved time and time again, this Conservative government, that there is money if it needs to be. So I remember in previous, no matter what politics you come from, people would say, well, you're saying we're going to do this, there's no money to do it. Well, the money that's coming in, and even that article I picked up on the Times about the furlough being extended again, there's so much, you know, money going into the system. It's going to have to come out. But one point, final point I'll say on the whole Corona thing, I did pick up in the Eye this morning. Would you believe, and I was quite shocked about this, the sales of Corona beer have gone through the roof this year. Now, I would have thought, no, that would have been the most toxic drink on the shelves, but they're up 40%, and the people behind it think it's because the name has been in so many people's mind that people have been buying it almost as a joke. I mean, I've tasted it. It is a bit of a joke, but that's not the point. The sales of Corona through the roof, as are wills, by the way, but that's another issue.
Yeah, wills, I hate to say it, if you talk to any divorce lawyer, they're extremely busy at the moment as well, which is another sad case of what's going on. They're always busy this time of year, actually come around in January. And you're dead right. And it goes back to Steve, the hospitality sector, the retail sector, it's going to be really tough in January, February. Do you agree, Steve?
Yeah, I think without the lockdown, the sector is suffering now. I mean, Christmas is not great for any of us in this sector at the moment. It's a tale of two halves. I've noticed actually the takeaway Christmas Day lunches are being promoted now from all the pubs quite heavily. So I'm assuming from that they're not getting the table bookings. Probably like us, were forced to purchase their turkeys. The supply chain has been affected naturally for the food supply chain, because we've not been able to map how we're going to buy our food to feed our customers, because we don't know who they're going to be. Normally we're seeing thousands of people out and about through December, and back in June, when we normally sort all this out, we were in the middle of lockdown still and unable to commit. So a real knock on for farmers, all the way up to the front facing organisations. So yeah, January and February are naturally hard, tough months, and I think that without a lockdown, it'll be even tougher than now.
I mean, you're obviously the marketing manager too for Hatton Court Group, isn't it? Is that 6 different establishments? Do you want to name those, please?
Yeah, so we've got 6 in the Cotswolds, we've got Hatton Court up in Upton, we've got the Thatch down in Quedgeley, the Beehive in Montpellier, the White Hart in Winchcombe, the Snooty Fox in Tetbury.
Yeah, and you'll be pleased to know that I've eaten in all of those.
Very good. Recently,
you can tell, Mark. Trust me, we can tell.
not all the same day.
We do an AA workshop on a Wednesday. We're spread out across the county, and that's where I get my very varied update on the successes, the difference between Hatton Court, that had bounced back through the summer really strong, as did most of the sector, has still continued to trade relatively well at the moment, but places on the outskirts like Winchcombe and Quedgeley have been really suffering.
How far down are you in sales, Steve? What kind of figures are we talking about?
We're talking 70k a period at the moment at the cost of the business, and that's a huge blow to any income to try and support 160 employees. The government have also taken away, we were told back in the summer, if you retain your staff, you'll get this £1,000 in the new year, and that's now gone. So we secured people's jobs, we took out loans that we'll obviously have to pay back to afford those salaries when business was down. We've then had that swiped away from us for the new year, which would have supported January and February. And now I'm very mindful that with poor trading months, that without grants, the sector will really, really struggle. And this is when we probably will more than likely face this redundancy issue, that otherwise the county in hospitality, because of July and August being good, in Gloucestershire, hotels and pubs and restaurants were busy. We didn't all come back and get made redundant. Some stayed on furlough. But my worry is that the third wave could potentially wipe out the jobs, because it will be hit by the usual January, February, and a corona impact as well.
All right.
Did I see, Sam, that furlough had been extended to the end of April now?
End of April, yeah.
Yeah, but the problem with that,
yeah.
sorry.
No.
The problem with the furlough scheme is it's still a cost to the business. When you're not able to trade, I've still got to cover 160 NI and tax. I've still got my fixed costs. And unfortunately, the furlough being extended is great, but only to a certain extent. If you've got no in for months and months on end, these costs now in the third wave, and also in places like Jersey, we have to top up the 20% on top of the 80 to get the 80. As a group of hotels, the knock-on effect is really substantial for us, because we still have to contribute with no in.
The other thing is, a lot of businesses, the very, very start of this, actually paid the extra 20%, even though they didn't have to. And they've actually eaten into their own savings, slowly nibbling into the, especially small companies, felt they were going to do the right thing, wanted to stand by their employees. So they've topped it up. They themselves, a lot of managing directors and chief execs, didn't pay themselves because they wanted to protect their staff. And what's actually happened is they've used up their savings, and they're going to run out of money in January, February, and this is where we're slowly getting to. Julie, we're running out of time, but it's always nice to kind of end on a high note. So Julie, what are you going to do now? Because you were governess of a school, wasn't it? Dean Close School.
Yeah, I was at Dean Close for 30 years, and I was a boarding house mistress for 20, living with 60 teenage girls, and I finished off with no girls in the house at all, because they all left on March the 20th. Obviously I'm involved with Cheltenham Open Door, Pied Piper and Goals Beyond Grass, and I'm involved in the Honourable Company of Gloucestershire and Visit Gloucestershire. And but I'm going to do a lot of public speaking when we can get out there. And I've been having lots of coaching from a coach in Wales, and I now have an agent. So I'm going to be doing lots of public speaking, motivational speaking, talking about how giving, the power of giving, how important it is, how it's good for your mental health. And I just wanted to finish off on my punchline story, which was about the King Square.
Well, we're going to do this. We've done that bit. I'm going to come around to those stories. Go on, give us your King Square story.
And I've got piedpiperappeal.co.uk, and so I'm okay, and everyone will go there. Right, my story from Punchline was about King Square, because as I went to Denmark Road, and when we finished, we're there for 7 years, we have a big cathedral service, and then we came back and we all got into the fountains in our school uniform at King Square, and got absolutely, they couldn't really expel us by then because we were leaving anyway, but we were in big trouble. So lots of feelings about King Square, really, sad that it's going, but very excited, and great for E.G. Carter. And actually Pied Piper have done the music works above the Regal. There's a whole floor there that's all music for young people, and one room is the Pied Piper room, which is going to be even with eyes, and Neil will know about this, it's like eye sensitive, so disabled children can flicker their eyes and the notes come on the screen and everything, and we're really proud of it. And that's going to be dead in the middle of King Square as well, and the regeneration, so we're very proud of that. So
thank you very much, Julie. Sam, what have you picked out on Punchline?
Well, actually, I did look at somewhere very close to King Square, and it's a story you did earlier in the week about Debenhams, and how sad it would be for Gloucester if that did finally go. And I know you're calling it a closing down sale, and that's how it certainly feels. And I've heard that there has been some interest in the building, but the feeling is that it's in a pretty bad state. And it's such a linchpin to Gloucester. And people might think, well, you're representing small businesses, but people don't realise that if you've got these big businesses, it attracts people into the city that then support the small businesses. So you take away some of those, so you take Debenhams away from Gloucester, it's one less reason for local people to go into the city centre and use the small businesses as well. So I'd be very, very sorry to see Debenhams go. My next door neighbour, Edna, she worked for Debenhams for 63 years. I think it was a record in the whole country for a little while. She joined when she was 14, and they kept her on until nearly her 80s. And it's a wonderful family for those that have worked there. It's a fabulous part of Gloucester's history. And if it did go, I just think it'd be very sad. So there you go.
Thanks very much, Sam. Neil, what have you got for Punchline this week?
Well, I already talked about that story about the 90,000 businesses helping through the Prince of Wales organisation. But there was another one that's pretty aligned to what Sam was saying, is that, the world has changed.
and we need to acknowledge that that change is coming, and it's coming very quickly. We've already talked about electric vehicles, but there was a story on your on Punchline about the modular construction scheme, where there's been planning permission now for 57 affordable homes using a completely different construction technique. And what we're seeing, we're obviously at the cutting edge of technology, and we're seeing things that probably won't be seen for a few years. But the one thing that we are seeing is that construction hasn't really changed for 100 years, and now there's a real big push to actually look at everything we're doing, whether that's the wiring, whether it's the construction of the concrete, the building technique. And I think we kind of, a bit like Debenhams, especially this time of year, you used to go to Debenhams, if you never went any other time of the year, you went there to get your Christmas presents and your stocking fillers and, your perfume and what have you, if you're desperate to get a present. And that's not going to be there, but we kind of got to acknowledge that that the world is changing. And I think, the one thing that I would probably finish on is that we've got to embrace this change, and we can reminisce, and a bit like Steve said about the hospitality industry, and Julie said about the charity industry, and Sam's talked about the small businesses. This is a time to really look at what we've been doing, and we can't carry on doing what we've always been doing. We've got to really look at every aspect of our life and how that's changed, whether that's shopping, eating, or any other construction or manufacturing.
And that is a nice way to finish. That is it for the year. That's Punchline Talks. Thanks ever so much, all of you, for joining us today. Have a very, very Merry Christmas, and please be safe and come back to us in one piece in 2021.